Justice, truth, murder, the bedrock of our legal system.
But they depend on something that's, well, incredibly slippery, facts.
Exactly. So what happens when the courtroom isn't quite this temple of absolute truth? When it sort of transforms into a stage?
A stage where everyone involved, the lawyers, the witnesses, even the defendant, are performers, playing for a jury that wants a story, maybe not the whole story.
Right. And that tension, that search for solid ground, for certainty in a world that's just inherently ambiguous, that's really the philosophical core, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it's right at the heart of the film landmark we're tackling today. We are doing a deep dive into Otto Preminger's 1959 masterpiece, Anatomy of a Murder.
That's right. And our mission today, well, it's to go way beyond just the plot summary of this sensational legal thriller.
Yeah, we want to dig into the core ideas, the really groundbreaking artistic choices that just flew in the face of 1950s Hollywood norms.
And the themes, the enduring themes that I think cement its status as probably the most important courtroom drama ever made. We want you to get why this film, even now, 60-odd years later,
still feels completely modern, still hits so hard.
It's like a mirror, isn't it? Yeah. Reflecting that fundamental ambiguity of justice itself.
And it guides you, the viewer, meticulously. It forces you right into that juror's seat, basically. Makes you wrestle with the evidence, the personalities.
The ethical knots.
Exactly. So we're going to unpack the brilliant performances, the production itself, which was incredibly controversial.
Oh, absolutely. Sensational stuff.
And what it all says, ultimately, about how truth gets performed, in our courts, even today.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We really have to set the stage first. And you can't talk about this film without starting with the director, Otto Preminger.
No, you really can't. Preminger was, well, notorious is maybe the right word. He had this reputation for just going head-to-head with Hollywood censors.
Specifically, the Production Code Administration, the old Hayes office, which was incredibly restrictive back then.
Extremely. He was a filmmaker who really defined himself by challenging things, by provoking. He seemed to relish it.
And that reputation, it wasn't just talk. He'd earned it.
Oh, yeah. He'd already fought a huge battle with the censors just a few years earlier, 1953, with The Moon is Blue.
Right, because they used words like virgin and pregnant. It seems almost quaint now, but back then...
It was scandalous. The code refused to give it seal of approval. But Preminger, he released it anyway.
And it was a huge hit. It proved the code wasn't all-powerful.
Exactly. It showed you could challenge it and survive, even thrive.
So... with Anatomy of a Murder, it feels like he wasn't just challenging the code, he was almost baiting them, like inviting a fight.
I think that's fair. His goal wasn't to make some safe, sanitized courtroom movie with a neat little moral at the end.
No, the source material, everything points to him wanting one thing: reality.
Reality. And that reality, especially around the crime itself, the alleged rape, it was messy, it was uncomfortable, and definitely provocative for 1959.
He was basically ripping up the Hollywood rulebook for courtroom dramas.
Totally. In an era where talking frankly about sexual assault, about human sexuality on screen, strictly taboo, Preminger insisted that the film had to reflect the complicated, sometimes sordid reality of life.
And real legal cases, which meant frank courtroom talk about rape, details the censors absolutely hated.
Highly objectionable to them. But he stood his ground.
And he had the perfect ammunition for that claim of gritty authenticity, didn't he? The source material itself.
Yes. The film was adapted from this massive bestseller, a novel by John D. Volker,
who wrote under the name Robert Traver.
Right. And Volker wasn't just some lawyer dabbling in fiction. He was a former prosecutor and, crucially at the time, a sitting Michigan Supreme Court justice.
That's incredible. That background just lends this immense credibility, this weight to the whole thing.
It really does. It means all the intricate legal stuff you see, the defense strategies, the cross-examinations, the way they talk, it feels real. Rooted in actual practice, not just cooked up for drama.
Which lets you, as the audience, trust the process you're seeing, even when it gets complicated. And that deepens the tension, right, between what feels right, morally, and what's actually achievable legally.
Exactly. That legal realism is key.
But, okay, shifting gears slightly, if we're talking revolutionary elements, we absolutely have to talk about the music. The score.
Oh, the score alone is a landmark, a huge cultural moment.
Truly. Anatomy of a Murder was the first major mainstream Hollywood film to have an entirely jazz soundtrack.
Yeah.
Composed and performed by the absolute legend, Duke Ellington.
And you hear it immediately, right from the opening credits, those cool, sultry tones, that saxophone, the piano.
It instantly tells you this isn't your standard swelling strings Hollywood drama score.
Yeah.
It sets a mood that's, well, distinct, unpredictable, kind of sensual even.
Mm-hmm. Which signals the moral gray area the film dives right into.
And we should pause on just how significant that was culturally, too. 1959. Having Duke Ellington, a giant of black music, score a big Hollywood movie like this.
It was a major statement, artistically and symbolically. The music wasn't just background noise, it was absolutely central to the film's whole identity.
Totally. That jazz score tells you straight away. This isn't a neat little morality play. There aren't clear heroes and villains here.
Because jazz itself, right, it's built on improvisation. It uses blue notes, those bent, ambiguous tones. It often leaves chords deliberately unresolved.
And Preminger uses that perfectly.
Yeah.
Setting the trial, the whole emotional structure, against that musical backdrop. It's like he's telling you visually and orally. This story is also about improvisation.
Especially in the defense strategy.
Right, and ambiguity in the evidence, and the very real possibility that you're not getting a tidy ending. The music prepares you for that uncertainty.
So let's get into the actual case. The setup, it seems deceptively simple at first glance, which is what makes the legal gymnastics later so fascinating.
Yeah, it's set in this small, kind of sleepy town in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. An Army lieutenant, Frederick Manion, that's Ben Gazzara, kills a local bar owner, Barney Quill.
And Manion doesn't deny it. He admits he pulled the trigger. So the act itself, the killing, seems pretty straightforward. Looks like premeditated murder. Carries a heavy sentence.
But then comes the twist. The motivation. Why did he do it?
Because, allegedly, Quill raped Manion's wife, Laura.
And that just changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly, it's not just about a killing. It's about justification, rage, maybe losing control. The stakes become enormous.
Immense. And stepping into this minefield, this seemingly unwinnable case, is Paul Biegler, James Stewart.
And when we first meet Biegler, he's living this wonderfully quiet life. He's semi-retired, it seems.
Always fishing, playing piano.
Bantering with his secretary. He looks like the classic small-town lawyer who'd rather be out on the river.
But you quickly see that beneath that charm, that relaxed vibe, there's a really sharp legal mind there.
Oh, yeah. And he's hungry for it. Hungry for the intellectual challenge, for the game, as they call it.
And it's important, his background. He used to be the district attorney.
Right. So he's not some naive idealist. He knows exactly how the system works, and maybe, more importantly, he understands the little shortcuts, the ethical gray areas a lawyer can use if they're determined to win.
And to win this case, Biegler needs something way beyond just claiming self-defense. Manion chased Quill down, shot him multiple times.
For the entire defense hinges on this strategy that's, well, it's brilliant, but also desperate. And really controversial.
The plea of irresistible impulse.
That's the legal pivot point. We should probably clarify that a bit for listeners today.
Good idea. Back then, the usual standard for an insanity defense was mostly the M'Naghten rule.
Which basically asks, did the defendant know right from wrong when they committed the crime? It's about cognitive capacity.
Exactly. But irresistible impulse is different. It focuses on volitional capacity, willpower.
So the argument is, even if Manion intellectually knew killing Quill was wrong,
in that moment, because of the shock of the alleged rape, he was temporarily insane, overwhelmed by such intense rage that he literally couldn't control the impulse to shoot.
Wow. So it forces the jury to try and gauge this internal subjective feeling, this overwhelming rage, instead of just sticking to the external facts of the killing.
Precisely. And the sources we looked at all describe this defense as risky, uncertain, even highly theatrical. Because how do you prove a momentary, uncontrollable impulse in court? It's incredibly difficult.
And once the trial starts, Preminger just leans into that difficulty. He deliberately avoids giving us, the audience, easy answers, objective truth.
Because if the whole defense rests on a state of mind, then the facts themselves become subjective, right? Every testimony you hear is ambiguous.
Witnesses contradict each other or themselves.
Oh.
You see how truth just kind of slips away in all the legal talk, the rhetoric?
And that ambiguity, that's not a flaw in the storytelling, it's the whole point. It's Preminger deliberately immersing you in doubt, skepticism.
You're constantly questioning, how reliable is this witness? What's Laura Manion's real story? How deep did Manion's rage actually run?
Was it truly an irresistible impulse born of temporary insanity? Or was it just a really clever legal strategy, a loophole?
The film just makes you live with that uncertainty, which becomes the central theme.
Okay, so since the film really hinges on this ambiguity, this idea of performance, we absolutely have to talk about the cast. It's an incredible ensemble, just legends doing career best work, arguably.
Let's start with Paul Biegler, the lawyer, as performer, James Stewart. And I honestly think this might be Stewart's greatest performance, his most complex anyway.
It's such a departure, isn't it, from the roles we usually think of him in, like George Bailey, the pure-hearted guys, or his Western heroes.
Totally different. Here, Biegler is, the sources call him sly, pragmatic, and definitely willing to bend the ethical rules to get the job done.
Stewart uses that inherent likability, that trustworthiness he always had, but he twists it slightly. He creates this lawyer that the audience and the jury in the film wants to trust, wants to root for.
Even when he's kind of skating right on the edge of misconduct.
He nails that courtroom performance. He's slightly bumbling on the surface, very folksy.
Using those small-town analogies, like comparing legal prep to tying a fishing lure.
Right. To put the jury at ease, make them connect with his client's emotional state. But underneath, he's strategically brilliant.
He perfectly embodies that lawyer who have to walk that tightrope between morality and strategy, always knowing just how far to push.
And then you have his foil, the prosecuting attorney, Claude Dancer, played with this chilling intensity by George C. Scott.
An Oscar-nominated performance, and deservedly so. Scott is the absolute perfect contrast to Stewart's warmth.
Where Biegler is approachable, Dancer is cold, clinical, relentless. He's got zero time for showmanship. He's all logic.
Their scenes together in court are just electric. Pure cinematic duels. The sources call it legal thrust and parry.
Scott's presence is just magnetic. Even when he's just standing there radiating skepticism, he represents the power of the state, the rigid logic of the law.
And he's desperately trying to stop Biegler from turning the whole trial into this, emotional performance piece.
Yeah, Dancer keeps trying to drag it back to the cold, hard facts of the murder, arguing that Biegler's just playing with words, manipulating emotions.
It's a clash of two totally opposite performance styles. It really makes the courtroom feel like the ultimate stage for this intellectual battle.
Okay, then there's the defendant himself, Lieutenant Manion, Ben Gazzara.
And he's maybe the hardest character to actually, in the whole film, which feels intentional.
Very intentional, I think. He comes across as hot-headed, arrogant, kind of difficult to sympathize with, prone to these jealous outbursts.
And making the client abrasive, morally questionable like that. That's key to Preminger's whole theme, isn't it?
Absolutely. It stops you, the viewer, from just defaulting to, oh, he must be innocent. You have to constantly grapple with that question the source material brings up.
Did he kill out of, genuine love and protection for his wife? Or was it more about his own wounded ego, that explosive, controlling rage?
Gazzara plays it perfectly. He keeps you guessing about the nature of that fury. Was it really irresistible impulse? Or just part of his possessive personality?
So he's both things at once. The sympathetic husband in one light, and a potential abuser in another. It keeps the legal technicality, the irresistible impulse plea, separate from your moral judgment of the man himself.
But the character who really steals the show, and was certainly the most controversial figure at the time, Laura Manion, the alleged victim, Remick.
And she was only 23. An absolutely fearless performance. She creates one of the most complex, ambiguous female characters, certainly of that whole era.
Remick as Laura just completely threw 1959 audiences for a loop. She defies every single expectation they had for a female victim, especially a victim of sexual assault.
She's flirtatious, playful, deeply complicated, but also you see moments of real vulnerability.
And the details the sources point out. She drinks, she laughs openly, she wears these tight skirts and sweaters.
All things considered, scandals for 1959, totally defying the expected image of a demure, traumatized woman.
And that provocative portrayal, it creates that crucial layer of doubt the film needs to work. Preminger shows us someone who deliberately plays with perception.
Is she a genuine victim of a horrible crime? Or is she maybe manipulating the situation? Using men's jealousy, including her husband's damaged way of the coach, to build a narrative that helps their case.
She constantly challenges the jury's assumptions, and our assumptions too, about what a victim looks like, how they should behave. Preminger refuses to give us an easy answer.
She's the embodiment of the film's ambiguity. She refuses to be put in a box. She's not just the innocent victim. She's not just the femme fatale. She's somehow both and neither.
And her presence just injects this massive dose of moral and factual uncertainty right into the heart of a trial that desperately needs certainty to function.
So beyond the amazing performances, the film's real lasting power, its brilliance, comes from how it uses this sensational case to dig into these huge philosophical questions about justice itself.
Right, let's tackle theme 1, the ambiguity of truth.
This feels like the absolute central argument of the movie. Preminger hammers it home by just refusing to give us the objective truth. Ever.
Yeah, in the courtroom, as the film shows, the issue isn't really what actually happened, it's what can you prove happened?
Facts almost become secondary. What matters is the perception you create, the narrative.
And you watch the lawyers, Biegler and Dancer, and the witnesses too, engaging in this really sophisticated narrative sculpting.
Biegler's job is to build the story of a man overwhelmed by uncontrollable righteous anger. Dancer's job is to demolish that story and replace it with one of cold-blooded, jealous murder.
The film makes you watch the raw facts get molded, twisted, spun. Juries interpret based on the story they're told. And Preminger forces you, the viewer, to just live in uncertainty, just like real life.
He trusts you to handle that doubt instead of wrapping it all up neatly.
It's a powerful statement about the judicial process being a filter, really. It doesn't necessarily find objective truth. It finds a legally acceptable narrative, often a very rehearsed one.
And this idea of constructing a narrative flows right into theme 2. Justice's performance?
Exactly. Both Biegler and Dancer know, deep down, that the law isn't some pure moral quest. It's a high-stakes game.
Their goal is to win. And winning is about persuasion, not necessarily about revealing the absolute truth.
Biegler's performance, it leans heavily on his charm, his wit, warmth, a touch of showmanship. He wants to build that emotional connection with the jury, make them feel sympathy for his client's state of mind.
He's deliberately playing the folksy, relatable guy, trying to close that gap between himself and the jurors.
Dancer, on the other hand, his performance is all about stripping away emotion, maximizing logic. He uses this cutting, dramatic, coldly logical style,
trying to expose what he sees as the fake manufactured nature of Biegler's emotional defense.
It really is theater, staged right there in the courtroom. Each lawyer playing a role, the jury is the critics deciding who gave the better performance. The verdict depends on who tells the more convincing story.
Which forces us to confront theme 3, morality versus law. The film is constantly blurring those lines, isn't it, between what feels ethically right and what's actually legally permissible.
Yeah, you have to ask that core question. Was Manion morally justified in his rage? Given what allegedly happened to his wife, a lot of people might instinctively say yes.
But was killing Quill legal? That's where it gets much, much murkier.
Absolutely. That whole irresistible impulse plea, it relies on a technicality, a loophole in the law about temporary sanity. It's not based on some universal idea of moral rightness or honor killing.
So Preminger's asking us, can the law ever really deliver true justice? Or does it only deliver legal outcomes?
And the film strongly suggests those two things are often very different. A legal win can feel morally empty or deeply unsatisfying.
Which takes us right to theme 4, the limits of justice. Because the ending, Manion's acquittal, it's deliberately unsettling, isn't it?
Completely. The sources really emphasize this. The ending doesn't bring closure. It's not some triumphant feel-good moment where justice prevails.
No, you're left feeling really uneasy about what actually went down.
And that lack of closure, that's the film's boldest statement. Preminger is arguing that the law doesn't offer certainty. It doesn't offer moral absolution.
It's fundamentally about doubt, interpretation, and power.
Exactly. You walk away without a definitive answer. Was Manion truly insane in that moment? Was Laura a victim or a manipulator? Did justice actually win?
The uncertainty just hangs there, showing the inherent limits of any legal system trying to pin down complex human behavior and emotion.
So how did Preminger actually achieve this feeling, this deep sense of realism mixed with ambiguity? It wasn't just the script and the acting, it was very much about how he filmed it.
Right, leaning into what you might call documentary realism, especially in the trial scenes.
His style was very deliberate. He used a lot of long takes, meaning the camera would just roll, sometimes for minutes, without cutting away.
Which lets the tension build much more naturally, more authentically. You're not getting quick edits or dramatic close-ups telling you how to feel.
The long take forces you to stay in the moment. It feels less like a movie manipulating you and more like you're observing something actually happening. And crucially, where he put the camera, often at jury level.
That's such a brilliant move for audience immersion, putting you, the viewer, visually right there in the jury box.
It makes you an active participant, doesn't it? You become a juror, wrestling with the same ambiguities, the same questions of credibility as the jury in the film.
You're not just watching from the gallery, you're right in it, weighing the evidence alongside them.
And visually, the whole film has this stark, almost documentary-like look. Not a lot of fancy lighting or flashy editing.
Preminger seemed to have this incredible trust, both in his material and in the audience's intelligence. He didn't feel the need to spoon-feed the emotions. He let the realism of the situation, the inherent drama of the trial, carry the weight.
Which brings us back to that Duke Ellington score. Because it wasn't just culturally significant, it works as this perfect metaphor for the whole film structure.
Cool, unpredictable, sensual, as the sources described it.
The music structure mirrors the trial's moral structure. Jazz with its blue notes, those ambiguous pitches, and its unresolved chords.
It connects perfectly to the trial's lack of a neat moral or emotional resolution. It just fits.
It's so fitting that a film centered on a defense strategy that's basically a legal improvisation, a deviation from the norm, uses a musical form that is improvisation and deviation from classical norms.
And the legacy of this film, it's just immense. Mainly because it was so revolutionary in 1959.
We talked about the production code fights, and the sources confirm, yes, some critics were scandalized. Plenty of church groups formally condemned it for its explicit dialogue about sex.
But audiences, they were absolutely riveted.
Totally riveted, because it dared to talk about sexual assault, about violence, with a frankness that was just unheard of on mainstream screens back then. It pushed the boundaries of what Hollywood was allowed to show and say.
And that boldness paid off, critically too. It got a ton of recognition, 7 Academy Award nominations.
Including the big ones. Best Picture, Best Actor for Stewart.
And remarkably, Best Supporting Actor nominations for both George C. Scott and Arthur O'Connell, who played Biegler's folksy co-counsel.
Which just underscores the sheer depth of that cast. Every single performance felt vital to building that ambiguity.
Anatomy of a Murder basically laid the groundwork, created the DNA, for pretty much every sophisticated courtroom drama that came after it.
You can see its influence everywhere. In the sharp dialogue of A Few Good Men.
The psychological manipulation and primal fear.
The cynical realism of the verdict. It proved that trial movies could be about more than just finding the killer. They could tackle society's deepest moral struggles, these complex intellectual puzzles. It gave legal films permission to be morally ambiguous. #tag outro.
So if we try to boil it all down, synthesize everything we've talked about, what's the enduring core of Anatomy of a Murder?
It's not just a clever legal thriller, is it? It's this profound look at the human condition, our endless, often frustrating search for objective truth.
In a system that's fundamentally built on interpretation, on persuasion, justice, the film seems to say, is never absolute. It's only performed.
And its greatest strength, maybe, is that it deliberately leaves you unsettled, unsatisfied. It demands that you, the viewer, the juror, keep wrestling with it long after the movie ends.
Which leads perfectly into the provocative thought we want to leave you with. The question the film itself refuses to answer definitively.
When the trial ended, when Manion was acquitted based on this clever legal technicality, was justice actually served?
Or was the entire trial just the most convincing, high-stakes performance of them all?
Think about the role that doubt and interpretation and, professional showmanship play in how you assess legal outcomes, both the ones you see on screen and the ones you encounter in real life.
If the absolute truth of a human conflict is maybe fundamentally unknowable, then what's the real ethical value of a legal system that has to rely on what can be proven through performance and persuasion?
Keep watching, keep questioning.
And keep deep diving with us into the films that really make you think.